Hi, friends. Welcome back to SANE-ish. I'm Joe Carducci, and if you're even half awake this week, you know the current events rundown practically writes itself. Congress is playing hot potato with their own power. The White House is getting a budgetary rubber stamp thanks to the so-called Recessions bill, and some lawmakers would rather cut PBS and NPR than cut a single billionaire's tax break. Meanwhile, the Epstein Files just detonated what was left of MAGA world's credibility, and the unmasking is so deliciously chaotic, even the conspiracy theorists can't keep up. It feels like democracy's getting chipped away, one spending cut, one abdicated oversight duty, one unspeakable file dump at a time, and you're not imagining it. But we're also not powerless. Today, I'm joined by Congressman Raskin, a constitutional scholar who doesn't just talk about the rule of law, but actually shows up to defend it. Whether he's calling out the latest power grab in Congress, standing up for public media, or demanding accountability as the Epstein Files grab headlines, Raskin never loses sight of what's at stake. Before we welcome Congressman Raskin, please take a minute to support this show by giving it a thumbs up or leaving a comment. It only takes a second, and your feedback really helps others discover what we're building here. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Congressman Jamie Raskin to the show. Welcome to the SANE-ish podcast. Representative Jamie Raskin, I am so excited to talk to you. I was just telling you that I have been a fan of yours for a very, very long time, long even before, the impeachments, etc. But you are just a tireless voice and powerhouse in Congress. And thank you for joining me. How are you?
Well, very good. And Joe, thank you for having me. I've really been looking forward to this, and it's really a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, such a pleasure to meet you. I mean, it's a day ending in Y, so there's nothing to talk about, but I guess we'll just jump right into what will not go away for Donald Trump and Republicans, which is Epstein. You tweeted, "Enough is enough. Chairman Jim Jordan should bring AG Pam Bondi, Deputy AG Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino before the Judiciary Committee to reveal to Congress and America exactly what they know about the Epstein Files." So let's talk about that.
Well, in other words, let's bring in the people who've been demanding a complete release of all of the files, but now want to sweep the whole thing under the rug. Let's bring them in and hear what accounts for this shocking 180-degree U-turn switch in terms of their position. I mean, look, we have been through a series of mass child and young people sex abuse scandals in America, whether it's the Catholic Church and other churches and synagogues and mosques where this has taken place, or Michigan State with the athletes, or Ohio State with the athletes, or the Epstein thing. And I hope that it unifies people across the political spectrum that we've got to do something to address this. Now, the one that Donald Trump got exercised about involved his former friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, they were best friends for a decade or more. And he was talking about it. He was railing about it. He said, "We want a complete release of all of the documents and all of the files." And J.D. Vance echoed that. And Attorney General Bondi echoed that. And Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, all of them were saying, release the files. They get into office. And what do you know? They decide, no, nothing to see here. We don't want anybody looking at any of this, and we're not going to release it. And it's just appalling. Meantime, what they're doing on the policy level, Joe, is they are dismantling the infrastructure of programs in the government and defunding the private programs that address human trafficking. And what was Jeffrey Epstein? He was a human trafficker. He trafficked in girls for the purposes of sexual abuse and predation. And meantime, they got rid of, I think it was 68 or 69 different programs at the Department of Labor addressing sex trafficking and child labor trafficking networks. They've been dismantling the infrastructure at the Department of Justice, at HHS, designed to combat human trafficking. So they're making it a lot easier for trafficking to take place. But obviously there's something there, and they don't want people to get a hold of it. And it's only made America more curious. And I got to hand it to my friends across the aisle in MAGA, they're not letting it go. They're not going to let him
No.
get away with this.
No, speaking of your friends across the aisle, though, this doesn't really just stop with the administration. There was a vote 2 days ago, I think, in the House, and a lot of people have some questions about what the vote was related to the Epstein Files, what the committee vote was. Can you explain that? Because I believe almost all, if not all, Republicans voted against releasing the Epstein Files. Is that the summation that's correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much right. There's a procedural mechanism called calling the previous question, which is just to cut off debate and to go ahead and vote. And we instead had basically a motion to amend their bills, which were all about crypto stuff, to add on to it and release all of the files at the Department of Justice. And there was a motion by the Republican leadership basically to exclude our amendment for the previous question. In other words, call the question, no other amendments, no other action. And that failed because all the Democrats voted against it and a bunch of Republicans joined us because they're very mad about the way that they want to pull the wool over everybody's eyes now. And you just can't gin up millions and millions of people around a satanic conspiracy that goes beyond the original sex offender and, Kashane Maxwell, who's working for him, and their little team that goes into lots of other stuff. You can't gin them up on all of this propaganda about conspiracy theory. It may be true, it may be false, and then just pull the rug out from beneath them and say, oh, no, we didn't really mean any of that stuff. We know that there are lots of documents that exist, a whole file that exists, and there may indeed be a client list, which is what Trump has been saying. Maybe not. Maybe he fabricated it. I certainly wouldn't put it past him. But the point is, at this point, they need to come clean about the whole thing.
Yeah, we need transparency, as Marjorie Taylor Greene so often talks about when it comes to this particular case. But speaking, you mentioned millions of people. I want to kind of pivot to the reconciliation bill, which they call the big, beautiful bill, and I call it the big billionaire boner bill. No offense to billionaires, but it's what it's more accurately called. Also, the Rescission Act that just went through, I believe the Senate passed that this morning.
Yeah.
And the millions and tens of millions of people who are going to be harmed by these two pieces of legislation, both here and abroad, and what that says about Donald Trump's promises to his voters, and what it says about the Republican Party largely in what they are doing for the or not doing, or doing to the American people.
Well, Trump did not campaign on throwing 14 million people off their Medicaid health coverage, but he's doing it. He did campaign on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein tapes and files. He's not doing it. So that's a real betrayal. He's causing a real problem with his own followers. And yesterday he said, I don't want them anymore. I don't care about these supporters if they're not willing basically to do whatever he tells them to do. I mean, to be a Trump supporter means you have to suspend all critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
So look, the healthcare of the American people are under attack. The SNAP program is under attack. They want to throw tens of millions of people off their SNAP nutritional benefits. It's a $4 trillion tax cut geared to the wealthiest people and the wealthiest corporations in the country, and a $4 trillion price tag for addition to the American debt, adding to the debt of the people. So we're throwing millions of people off their health care, off of their SNAP benefits. We're dismantling large parts of the wind and solar energy industry, threatening perhaps up to 1 million jobs, maybe more than 1 million jobs. We're handing this huge gift to China because we're yielding the stage for them to be the complete leaders in renewable energy. It's a big bonus for the carbon kings and coal and gas and oil. It's just a nightmare bill. I mean, it may be the worst bill in American history, certainly in memory. It's just because it's going to do lots of damage against millions and millions of Americans, lots of damage to our economy, and saddle future generations with $4 trillion of debt, all for a tax giveaway. And then this war on Medicaid, and Medicare is also implicated, and on the SNAP program.
Yeah, and there's numbers from the CBO that millions more who aren't even impacted by Medicaid won't be able to access health care because these rural hospitals that they rely on will close because of the Medicare cuts that impact other people. So even more of his voters. And this bill is massively unpopular when people actually know what's in it. I think 6 out of 10 across the political spectrum disapprove of this bill. So it's incumbent upon people like me, obviously people like you, as you're doing such a great job at educating the American people on what Republicans have just done to them. And Donald Trump already saddled our country with that $8 trillion in debt. But I want to kind of close with two things. Your district, Maryland 8, I think, is it correct? Maryland 8 has a lot of State Department employees who live there. And Marco Rubio, who you talk about wearing 4 hats at least at one time, has just gutted 15% of the Department of State's workforce. I want to talk about, just in closing, that impact and how the people in your district are particularly impacted by it. But I also want to talk about how you tweeted the most important words of the Constitution are the first 3: we the people. We the people are paying the price right now for Donald Trump and Donald Trump's administration and the Republican agenda to give him his mandate. So can you just close with what we the people can do right now in this moment?
Well, we the people are the sovereign authority. Nobody's higher than the people. Anybody who aspires and attains to public office, whether it's House or Senate or president or state legislature or city council, everybody who's in public office is nothing but the servant of the people. And the moment that we act not like servants of the people, but masters of the people, kings and queens and dictators and lords and emperors, that is the moment to evict, eject, reject, impeach, try, convict, remove, disqualify, the whole thing, because we don't need that. We need people who are working only as servants of the people in the people's best interests and for the values of the people. I have the honor of representing somewhere around 50 or 55,000 federal workers who've just been treated like, dog meat by this administration, by Elon Musk, by Doge. Tens of thousands of people across the country have lost their jobs. We're talking about, firefighters for the U.S. Forest Service. We're talking about air traffic controllers for the FAA. Cancer researchers at NIH, which is in my district, food and drug inspectors, just sat en masse with no reason except for political reasons that, they just want to get rid of other people and bring their own people in and destroy the government, wreck the government. So I made a speech on Friday, I think it was, or maybe it was on Monday, about the Friday firing of all of these people from the State Department. So you've got the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who also holds the title of archivist, national archivist, and USAID administrator, and national security advisor. So he's got 4 jobs, and he decides he's going to fire 1,400 people, each of whom is doing one real job. And in general, they do it splendidly well, but they're being fired. And these are people who are working on human rights, foreign aid assistance, diplomacy, getting people passports, getting people in and out of danger zones. And the State Department is on the front lines of every kind of civil conflict and emergency, natural emergency all over the world. And they just got sacked summarily. So China is celebrating because China's going to move right into that void, right into the gap. Russia is celebrating because it's great news for the autocrats and the dictators. They want us to be able to communicate only through war and through weapons and through Donald Trump's behind-the-scenes corrupt business deals, or above board, just taking money directly from kings, princes, and foreign states. So it's a very grim era they're moving us into, and we've got to stop this war on the federal workers who work for us. We see what that means. They want to dismantle FEMA. Well, they pretty much gutted FEMA and emptied it out. And we can see in Texas what that means, not to have a real FEMA. We didn't have a fatal airplane crash in 17 years. They come in, they sack the FAA director, they get rid of the top team. And what do you know? The airports are clogged. The planes are going down. We've had several fatal airplane crashes since it started. Government matters.
Yeah.
Federal workers do a real job.
Yeah.
And so stop the war on federal workers. They just want the federal government to be a plaything for them for all of their, sweetheart contracts and business deals. And I noticed that Elon Musk, who very much enjoyed slashing all of these people's work, is now back in town to collect, I think it's a $200 million contract for Mach at the Department of Defense right after it came out as an anti-Semitic artificial intelligence system.
Yeah, well, of course. Well, I know you have a very busy day and a very busy schedule, and I am so grateful for your time and for you being a messenger for the people and for holding this administration and these cabinet members accountable. We need you more than we have ever needed you, and we have long needed you. So thank you so much, Congressman Raskin. I really appreciate your time and your voice and advocacy.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. It's so great to meet you, Joe, and I'd love to come back sometime.
Okay, definitely. I'm going to hold you to that. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Congressman Raskin for being here today. This week proved again, democracy is fragile by design, and the biggest threat isn't always the loudest. It's the slow drip of power handed off, oversight ignored, or truth buried under pending investigation. If anything from this conversation fired you up, rate and review SANE-ish. Share it with your people, and remember, the future only gets to be less chaotic if we all get in the fight. Until next time, stay strong, stay sane-ish, and let's keep holding the line.